What's up, guys? Today we're going to be testing a waste oil burner nozzle. Now I picked this up for $4 at Menards. I basically cut the end off of this spray bottle, and we're going to be seeing how it behaves today. Okay, something very interesting happened here, guys. As I was purging this thing out, I noticed when air is mixed in the system, it produces one hell of an oil mess. Look at that. Incredible. Whether or not it's going to be able to run this old waste oil burner that I have, it's not going to completely atomize the oil, I don't think, but it might be enough to run this unit. And we're going to be using this test setup I have here. This is an oil pump that I built the other day, and at the end of the video this little spud flew off on me and shot a huge spray of oil over here. I haven't cleaned it all up yet. You see a puddle of it right there still. And I wanted to show you guys something about these pumps. I'm somewhat of a physics nut, and I do like mathematical formulas and stuff like that, and I wanted to show you guys a little bit of equations regarding pressurized tanks. These are also called functions, whatever you want to call them. Computer programmers tend to call them functions, whereas a physicist would call this a formula. A formula is just basically a function that when you put in these numbers, these values, some are constant, some are not. For instance, gravity is a constant, height is not. This is the coefficient of fluid flow right here, and essentially what we have here is I've done the equations on the incident that took place yesterday, and I want to show you how much fluid actually sprayed out onto the floor. And we're also going to be able to observe that by, we're going to drain the tank completely and see how much oil we end up in this jar. Pretty sure this jar was almost full when that happened. We should see about a liter of fluid missing based on these equations. And basically, this is the equation that allows you to determine the discharge velocity of a fluid in a tank. We have to add in this other quantity or formula function for the fact that the tank is pressurized. You see here I have 100 psi's. Now I did this particular side of the formula in empirical because I don't know how to add pressure head in metric. But a long story short, the oil came spraying out of that thing at 100 foot per second, which is like 68 miles per hour. Okay, this equation here gives you the flow rate. So what we do is we determine the area of the orifice, which in this case is very small. See that little orifice in the needle valve? That's the orifice we would use to calculate the flow rate, not the size of the pipe right here. That orifice was very small, and this equation then yields a value of 0.00024 cubic meters per second, which comes out to 14 liters per minute, or 0.244 liters a second. Now it took me probably about 4 seconds to close that needle valve. So if the needle valve sprayed constantly at the same rate until it was closed, we would have observed a loss of 0.9 liters. Almost an entire liter of oil got sprayed on the floor. But because the valve gradually closes, the equations become exceedingly complex. It's kind of like a hyperbola. So I'm going to guesstimate that the area under the curve of that hyperbola is going to be about half of that. So we saw about a pint of oil sprayed out onto my floor in the matter of 3 to 4 seconds. So that should take us about down to here. This is how much oil this thing should end up with it once we've flushed it all out of the tank here. This tank is completely full. Well, it's not completely full. It actually only had this much to start. I'm sorry. Then the incident took place, so I'm thinking it sprayed out about that much, or about a pint of fluid, because I said it's hyperbolic. Let me get a pen here, marker. This is what I mean, because we're going to have a chart with time and volume versus time, and it would do this. and the area under the curve, which you would need calculus and all that crap, or a computer. You draw this on a computer and CAD and then get the area. But anyway, that area under the curve represents the volume of fluid. Now, if it was just constant, it would be a box. Like you'd start off up here, and then you would go that way with time. This is your volume, and that's your time, and then this would be the full 0.97 liters. But because our volume drops off with time, it's about half of that. So that's why I'm saying it's about half a liter of fluid sprayed out onto my floor in like 3 seconds. It looked like a rocket. Oil was spraying out of there so fast that it was actually loud. It had like a spray noise to it. At any rate, I'm going to shut up now, and we're going to connect this nozzle to the setup. I just wanted to show that to you guys because a couple people had commented on the huge mess I made, and I thought it'd be interesting to know how much fluid actually sprayed onto the ground. And as I said, I am somewhat of a physics enthusiast, and I do enjoy doing this stuff. I have this great book that I bought years and years ago, before the internet was popular. This thing cost me like $100 like 20 years ago. So it's a awesome little book. Got some really neat stuff in here, man. Just an amazing book. So just wanted to share that with you. I'm going to hook this up, and we're going to check out this nozzle. Okay, test one here. We're going to start off at 60 psi's on the regulator. And we're going to connect this bad boy. Not exactly what setting I'm going to start on, but uh-oh. My hands are too slippery. I'm not too worried about this glass oil or fuel filter busting on me. If it does explode, explosions caused by fluid compression are different than air. There's not going to be any shrapnel. It'll probably crack and then just spray me with oil. I'm not sure what setting to start off on here. I'm going to go ahead and open the valve. Here we go. Okay, I'm getting a straight pattern now. The line pressure appears to be right around 15 psi right there. It's going to increase as I close this. This thing might not atomize oil at all. This is just a test. Yeah, it's not acting like it wants to. I'm getting no atomization whatsoever, which is to be expected. I mean, its geometry is different. Maybe if I drill the hole out bigger, that would allow the oil to do that spiral spin that it does. I bet you that's what will do it. Anyway, that's still at 60 psi's. Let me increase the pressure here. Dude, look at that little spiral it's doing. Our line pressure is now at about 49 psi's. Still getting no mist. I hope you can see that. Okay. I'm going to up the ante here. Going to increase the pressure. Uh-oh, I got a leak. I'm going to shut this down for a minute. I got to tighten things up. My filter isn't tightened very tight. I didn't want to crack that glass. So, not liking what I see. I still do believe that drilling that hole out a little bit bigger is going to let that fuel spiral, because that fuel is being rotated by the inner geometry of that nozzle. That's how the spray nozzles work, is they spin the fuel. Okay, hopefully that'll hold the pressure. There is a few air bubbles in this, which kind of concerned me. All right, I'm going to increase the pressure to 100 psi. really hope you guys can see any of this at all. I haven't really tested that. Could be just wasting my time. We are now at 100 psi's. I still think this orifice is just too small for the oil to spin out of there. I think it's recombining and bogging itself down. So here we go. This is 100 psi's. That's a better jet. That's about 65 psi's there. That is just way too much frickin' oil. Fanning out pretty big. That is about 75 psi's. You can see it's making a really nice ribbon. You probably can't see it. Very strange pattern. That is just way too much oil. I am filling the frickin' bowl up here. And that's full throttle. I'm going to go ahead and slow it down here before I use all the oil up. I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice this tip. It only cost $4, and I'm going to look into the theory of increasing the diameter of this orifice. I'm going to drill this out real quick. I used almost no air, by the way, to pump that oil. Now, I think this is going to work. We're going to see if I know what the hell I'm talking about, though. I often do not, but I'm damn hard to convince if I don't. So, I'm not sure what size to drill out. Maybe I should go slow with it. The bit I have might be too big. I am using a, what was that? Was it a 1/8? 3/32. So I don't know why I just spit right there. Hell, nasty bastard. Yeah, if I go too big, it's just gonna kill it. Might not need to be that damn big. That was easy. All right. There's some debris in there that I've got to scratch out. Probably ought to try to dress this up with a rat tail file. Yeah, I don't know, I'm worried now that I've overdone it. The reason why I think this will work is because as a kid, I had a yard sprinkler that worked under this principle where the water would be swirled around and it had a fairly large hole in the center. And the water come out of that hole in a cone, real nice cone. So that's the assumption in my mind that's helped me make that decision. Not very valuable information by any means, but we're about to put it to the test here. Now this should make a cone. Dude, that is so close. Get some gloves. Let's go at 100 psi's. which for oil, you know, I'm almost thinking we kind of want to hover around that area. I believe 300 psi is an average pressure for some commercial units. Okay, see if you guys can see this jar. Yes, you can. And heel. Nothing. It's a big fat spray hole. Damn it. Alright, so that is just piss poor. Works for water, it's not for oil, which is understandable. If this thing pops off air right now, I'm going to have oil all over the place. I better slow down. Okay, so I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. That didn't work at all. There's just way too much oil flow. Looks like the $4 waste oil nozzle ain't gonna work. That's a shame. Wish there was something else I could do to it. Maybe if the oil was really hot. Lost a little bit of pressure there. Yeah, I'm just about out of oil here, I'm thinking. Not having much luck. Very strange flow patterns. I'm going to pick the camera up and put the camera in position to see these flow patterns. If that was hot, that might make a nice little vapor cloud. Uh-oh. I think it's running out. Yes, it is. We're just about right on the money with that. Now that this has air in it, I gotta be careful. Because if this explodes with air pressure in it, it will create shrapnel. Fluid pressure is different. Hydrostatic ruptures don't tend to explode. That's why they use fluids to pressure test objects. They don't pressure them up with air, they pressure them up with fluid because they won't explode that way usually. Not as bad anyway. As soon as they pop, the pressure's gone. I mean, fluid doesn't expand, so it doesn't have that ever-ending surge. So I was pretty close, guys. Those calculations are damn good. And this is empirical data. It is matching up with actual equation. I mean, I don't remember where I pointed my finger, but as I said, this thing was about here. We spilled a little bit here and there on the floor, messing with this and that. And yeah, that's kind of cool. That's how much oil sprayed out of this thing in like 3 to 4 seconds. The thing was filled up all the way to here. Probably a little over a pint. Now, the inaccuracy is coming from, I don't know the actual hyperbola of this curve. I keep saying hyperbola. I mean parabolic, not hyperbolic. It's a parabolic curve. Jeez. So, the total amount would have been about half of that jar for a liter, I'm thinking. Maybe not. Maybe that valve does close a little bit more suddenly. The maximum theoretical amount that could have sprayed on the floor is that right there. So to come out that close to that, based on the fact that that valve is being slowly turned off as it's spraying, is pretty cool. So, well, there you have that, fellas. The $4 waste oil sprayer didn't work, but I'm going to post this in anyway. So if anyone else gets the idea of doing that, they know that a spray nozzle for water is just not adequate for oil. The oil's viscosity is too high for that to work. So We wasted $4 on this experiment, but I think it was well worth it. I'm sure I'll find something to do with that tip. I know I can do something with this. But it isn't broke already. Oh, never mind, it already broke. Fell off the table. Okay, something very interesting happened here, guys. As I was purging this thing out, I noticed when air is mixed in the system, it produces one hell of an oil mess. Look at that. Incredible. Very interesting. So it appears that having air in the oil stream produces an awesome oil vapor. Let me re-examine this. We're going to make a little mess. Taking one for the team on this one. You know, and online when I've seen those atomizers, I noticed they have air and oil injection. Look at that. That is a super fine mist. Incredible. I've got to figure out how to do that. Well, I can taste that oil. Yum. Tell you what I just discovered here, fellas. This experiment was not a failure after all. I don't know if you guys could see that oil cloud the way I could, but that was a highly vaporized oil cloud, and it was achieved by the contamination of air in the flow stream. There's some of that bad solder I got leaking a little bit on me there. That's that Metalworks Burns-O-Matic solder for you. I might have to redo all my solder joints. At any rate, what I'm seeing, guys, is that if we were to take an air line and somehow connect it into the oil stream, man, I don't know how to do this. I'm thinking that the oil pressure would have to be higher than the air pressure to get the oil in the system. If you have any suggestions, definitely leave some comments, guys. You guys have been helping out a lot with these builds. I'm thinking what I just seen there is a pretty amazing discovery, and I need to figure out some way. Uh-oh. What the hell's going on? I got flow. Valve ain't closed all the way or something. Yeah, these needle valves ain't very good. But at any rate, from what I'm seeing, the introduction of air in this system has basically made a very awesome atomizer. I'm gonna figure this out, fellas. I'm gonna figure out how to keep air getting injected into the system. I have an idea of how that can happen, because the pressure on this side of the flow stream is going to be lower than the pressure on this side, because we have an open valve. We have an open end in the system. So perhaps a secondary needle valve being fed into the oil stream, injecting air simultaneously with the oil, could potentially produce the atomized oil that we've been looking for. I mean, that was some super atomized oil, guys. That was like 20 micron droplets. Super tiny. Probably smaller than that. That was like mist, like I was breathing it like an idiot. That would probably work, fellas. I need to hook up another needle valve to the tank somehow, which really kind of sucks because I had access right down there and I capped it off. Might be able to do it from the high pressure side, but I don't know if I want to do that or not. I'm going to go ahead and post this video, guys, and tell me what you think about this final discovery towards the end. I was just closing up shop here, getting ready to shut this experiment down, and I decided to purge the system. And son of a bitch, I got the best damn oil vaporizer nozzle I ever seen in my life. In person, that is. I mean, it's been in this shack of a shop garage. So the $4 waste oil burner nozzle is back in effect. And I do like this oil filter. It's glass, which scares the hell out of me. But pretty sure they were smart enough to pressure rate that to over 100 PSIs. Any of you guys have any input on this inline filter I bought? I think this cost me 12 bucks at O'Reilly's. Let me know if you are familiar with the pressure rating of some fuel systems that might incorporate this, because I'm thinking that most fuel pressure systems are not over 30 PSIs, though I've heard semis sometimes go up to 500. But man, that's cool. One more misc show. We're gonna be able to see this. Oh shit. Yeah, there's just a trickle of oil in the line. Can you see the flow? So that's what we need to reproduce. Is get some air flowing and then a trickle of oil inside of that airflow. This compressor, however, is only going to be able to pump the oil. This thing just doesn't have the capacity to provide the kind of air I'm thinking. So what I might do, man, I'm on the fence here. What should I do? We'll try it. I'm going to start off by trying using this as the air supply as well, because it doesn't look like we need that much air, really. This thing would run almost constantly and probably melt. It has a plastic piston ring. It might be smart to simply use this as the oil supply and then hook up the other air compressor. Man, that's a lot of damn air. Maybe a lower pressure would work okay. We'll figure this out, fellas. All I know is I'm really happy with what I just seen here.